Linda Mitchell had never considered herself particularly compassionate. She simply did what seemed right, without dwelling on lofty ideals. At 33, she had everything many only dream of: a spacious house on the outskirts of town, a millionaire husband, a 5-year-old son, Danny, who was growing into a bright and inquisitive boy. But happiness is a strange thing. It isn't measured in square footage or zeros in a bank account. On that October morning, Linda was returning from a walk. Danny ran ahead, chasing fallen leaves with a stick, while she followed at a leisurely pace, enjoying the rare quiet. Nathan had left early, before dawn, some urgent business at the office. Lately, he'd been disappearing to work more and more often, returning late, sullen and silent. Linda didn't insist on conversations. In their marriage, an unspoken rule had long been established. Each had their own territory, their own concerns. Approaching the wrought iron gates of the mansion, she noticed a figure by the fence. A young woman was crouching, her back pressed against the cold metal, trying to warm her hands with her breath. A thin jacket, clearly wrong for the weather, jeans with worn patches on the knees, a backpack that had seen better days. Her face was pale, lips slightly blue. Hair pulled back in a ponytail had escaped from the elastic, falling unevenly on her shoulders. The girl sat motionless, as if afraid to attract attention, as if hoping to blend with the gray stone of the fence and remain unnoticed. "Mom, look!" Danny stopped and pointed. "That lady is freezing." "Shh, sweetheart." Linda placed her hand on her son's shoulder, but didn't take her eyes off the stranger. Linda approached closer. The girl raised her head slowly, with visible effort, as if each movement came with difficulty. Dark eyes, wary but without insolence, without that familiar demandingness Linda sometimes saw in those asking for handouts. In those eyes, there was only fatigue and a kind of quiet resignation. Red blotches from the cold appeared on her cheeks. Her hands trembled slightly with a fine shiver. She pressed them to her chest, trying to somehow ease the chill. Her clothes were clean, though worn, clearly a person who hadn't completely given up, still holding on, still trying to preserve the remnants of dignity. On the knees of her jeans were old patches, carefully sewn by hand. Her sneakers were worn through at the toes, but the laces were tied neatly, without carelessness. "Excuse me." The girl tried to stand, swayed. "I'll leave now. Just sat down for a minute." "How long have you been here?" Linda extended her hand, helping her up. "About 2 hours, I guess. Was walking by, my legs got tired. It's really cold." Her voice was quiet, without self-pity. Sarah, that's how she introduced herself, didn't ask for money, didn't make up heart-wrenching stories. She was simply freezing. "Come inside." Linda made the decision instantly. "You'll warm up, have something to eat." "No need, really. I don't want to." "Danny, open the gate." The boy obediently pressed the code on the panel. The gates silently slid open. Sarah looked at the mansion with its glass veranda, manicured lawn, 2-car garage, and said nothing. She quietly stood up and followed the lady of the house. Inside, it smelled of fresh baking. The house manager, Helen Porter, was just coming out of the kitchen with a tray. "Helen, set for one more, and prepare hot tea." Porter gave Sarah a look that eloquently read, "What kind of vagrant is this now?" but said nothing aloud. She nodded and left. Sarah removed her backpack, gripping the straps as if afraid it would be taken away. She sat on the edge of a chair in the living room when Linda pointed to an armchair. "Where are you from?" Linda asked, pouring tea. "Got evicted from my apartment a month ago. Couldn't pay, and there are no places in the dorm. I was a student, community college, IT program. Didn't finish. Family? Friends? No." Brief, without unnecessary details. Linda didn't press. She herself hated curiosity when it concerned her personal life. "Listen, we actually need a housekeeper. Helen can't manage alone, the house is big. You'll stay with us for now, help with the housework. Sound good? Sarah froze with the cup in her hands. Seriously? Absolutely. There's a spare room on the second floor. Small, but your own. We'll agree on a month. See how it goes. I agree. Thank you. Her voice trembled. Sarah turned away, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Helen showed her the room, clean, bright, with a window overlooking the yard. Sarah set her backpack by the bed and stared at the soft blanket for a long time, as if not believing this was real. By evening, she was already helping in the kitchen. She moved quietly, carefully, trying not to get in the way. Helen was initially distant, but gradually warmed up when she saw the girl worked quickly and without complaints. Sarah was washing dishes when she noticed the first oddity. In the corner of the kitchen, above the refrigerator, hung a small white unit, seemingly a motion sensor from a smart home system. She knew what they looked like. At the community college, they covered the basics of building automation, and Sarah had even worked part-time installing similar systems. But this sensor was turned not toward the entrance, but toward the dining table. Strange. She said nothing. Not her business. She was here a guest, a temporary worker who could easily be shown the door. Later, when cleaning the living room, she noticed again. A lighting module from one manufacturer, a thermostat from another, and the sensor, a completely different brand. In a normal system, everything is unified. Someone had installed this hastily or was trying to hide something. Sarah took a cloth and wiped the shelf. Her hand brushed the control panel on the wall. The display lit up, showing the temperature in the rooms, the state of the security system, lighting. But there were no cameras in the interface. Not one. Meanwhile, in the corner of the hallway, behind a decorative cornice, she noticed a lens. Very small, unnoticeable to the average person. But Sarah had seen ones like this in practice. Her heart beat faster. She moved to the window, pretending to adjust the curtain. A camera. A hidden camera that wasn't in the house management system. In the evening, when Danny went to bed, Linda asked Sarah to help sort things in the storage room. There, behind an old cabinet, Sarah saw a power supply unit. The wire didn't go to the common channel, but ran under the baseboard, toward the hallway. Linda, who installed your security system? My husband hired contractors, about a year and a half ago. Why do you ask? Just curious. Everything's done so modern. Linda nodded and left. Sarah remained alone. She sat on a chair. The house definitely had a hidden surveillance system. The question was, whose and why? She remembered everything she'd been taught at the community college. Hidden cameras are installed either to monitor staff or for espionage. If Nathan installed them himself, why hide them from the interface? If not him, then who? And most importantly, who's receiving the transmission? Sarah got up, walked down the hallway. Another camera, in the living room area, aimed at Nathan's desk. A third, in the entryway, with a view of the front door and alarm panel. She said nothing. It was still too early. They'd easily throw her out, wouldn't believe her, would accuse her of fantasies or attempted blackmail. She needed to be sure. Nathan came home from work that evening. Sarah heard heavy footsteps, the slam of a door. Linda, where are you? His voice sharp, irritated. Sarah stood and went to the staircase. Downstairs, Linda stood near her husband. Nathan, tall, broad-shouldered with large features, threw his jacket on a chair and was loosening his tie with nervous movements. I have the deal of a lifetime tomorrow, he spoke harshly through his teeth. A year and a half of preparation, 30 million in investments, and you're dragging all kinds of trash in from the street. He saw Sarah on the stairs. His gaze stopped on her, cold, assessing. Who is she? Nathan, wait. Linda tried to take his hand, but he pulled away. I don't want to hear it. I want her gone by morning. Clear? Sarah silently turned and went to her room. Behind her, she heard muffled voices, but couldn't make out the words. She sat on the bed, lowering her head. So that's it. So she's trash again. Excess garbage that needs to be disposed of. Half an hour later, Linda knocked on the door. Please forgive him. He's on edge right now. Big problems at work. I understand. Listen. If you can help with cleaning tonight, I'll pay. Pay well. So you can rent a room somewhere for a couple months. Deal? Sarah nodded. Money was more important than pride right now. In the evening, when the house quieted down, she began cleaning, wiping dust, mopping floors, putting things away, and along the way, checking each camera. The temperature sensor in the hallway was warm to the touch. Sarah placed her palm on it. Electronics were definitely working inside. A regular sensor wouldn't heat up this much. The indicator on the lighting panel in the office was covered with a thin layer of clear lacquer. Sarah brought a flashlight close. Under the lacquer, a red LED was visible. The camera was active. The cable behind the cabinet in the storage room didn't go to the electrical panel, but to a separate channel hidden behind the wall lining. Sarah returned to the living room, sat on the couch. Everything fit together. Someone was watching this house. Someone knew what was happening inside. And if Nathan really had an important deal tomorrow, then this someone was in the know too. Sarah worked late into the night. Then, taking advantage of the opportunity, she took a hot shower and went to bed. And when she woke up, the first thing she did was go to the window. Dawn was already breaking over the city. In an hour, Nathan would wake up. Sarah would pack her things and leave, as she'd been told. But before leaving, she would say what she had to say. The morning turned out cool. Nathan was coming down the stairs, fastening gold cufflinks on his shirt. Sarah waited in the entryway, holding her backpack. Ready to go? He glanced at her without stopping. Yes, but I wanted to say something before I leave. He turned, frowning. While cleaning, I noticed you have hidden cameras all over the house. Good luck with your deal. Nathan froze. His face changed instantly, from irritation to sharp attention. What did you say? Cameras, hidden ones. They're not in your house management system interface, but they physically exist. In the living room, office, kitchen, hallway. At least 5 that I noticed. Possibly more. Nathan went pale. His jaw tensed, veins appeared on his temples. He took a step forward, then another, closing the distance between them. Sarah instinctively stepped back half a step, but held his gaze. In the millionaire's eyes was such tension, such concentration, that she felt a chill run down her spine. How do you know? His voice became quieter but no less demanding. How could you even know this? You're homeless. Sarah gripped her backpack strap tighter. The word cut, but she didn't show it. I studied to be an IT specialist, studied smart homes in theory and practice. She spoke evenly, without emotion, as if at an exam. Installation, configuration, system integration. I know how it works and what it looks like when something's wrong. I know which modules are compatible with which cables should go where, how sensors should be positioned. Everything in your house is wrong. You have different manufacturers in one system, extra power supplies, cables bypassing the main line, and cameras that shouldn't be there. Nathan was silent, looking at her so intently, as if trying to read her thoughts. Sarah could see him considering each of her words, weighing them, checking their logic. You could be mistaken, he finally said, but there was no longer the former certainty in his voice. I could be, Sarah agreed, but a temperature sensor shouldn't be warm to the touch. The indicator on the lighting panel shouldn't be covered with lacquer, and the power supply in the storage room shouldn't be powering something that's not in your management system. Nathan looked at her for a long time, intently. Then he abruptly grabbed her wrist. Wait, you'll show me. Right now. Nathan stood in the middle of the entryway, and Sarah could see distrust and anxiety battling in his eyes. He looked at her as if trying to understand whether she was playing him, whether she was trying to extort money for her silence. But something in her calm, tired tone made him stop and listen. "Show me," he said curtly. "Let's go." Sarah nodded, put her backpack by the door, and headed to the living room. Nathan followed, stepping heavily on the parquet. Linda appeared on the stairs, alarmed by the sudden change in her husband's behavior. "Nathan, what's happening?" "Wait." He waved his hand without turning around. In the living room, Sarah approached the corner where a white module was mounted on the ceiling. It looked like an ordinary motion sensor, a small plastic box with a lens in the center. "This one," she pointed. "See how it's aimed? Not at the door, but at your desk. Motion sensors aren't installed that way. They need to control entry into a zone, not a specific place. This is a camera." Nathan squinted, looking up. He approached closer, stood on tiptoes, peering at the device. Maybe it was just installed incorrectly? Then why isn't this device in the house management interface? Sarah took her phone out of her jacket pocket, opened the browser. "You have a standard panel on the wall in the hallway. I saw it yesterday when I was cleaning. It displays all connected modules: lighting, climate, sensors. But there are no cameras, not one." She scrolled on the screen, showing the empty security section in the demo version of the app from the same manufacturer. "I don't have access to your system, but if cameras were officially installed, they'd show here. And they don't." Nathan exhaled sharply, rubbed the bridge of his nose. Sarah could see the tension in his body building. "Continue," he ordered. They went to the office. Here, Sarah showed the lighting module above the bookshelf. She approached closely, rose on her toes, and ran her finger over the housing. "See the indicator? It's covered with a transparent layer. They do this to hide the light signal. Usually indicators are either open or not there at all. Why cover it if it's just a light sensor?" Nathan leaned in, peering. Indeed, at a certain angle, a thin film of lacquer was visible, and beneath it, a barely noticeable red glow. "It can't be," he muttered. In the hallway, Sarah stopped at the climate control panel. She pressed her palm to the white unit hanging nearby. "Temperature sensor, but it's warm. Too warm for a simple thermometer. Something else is working inside." Nathan repeated her gesture, pressing his hand to the plastic. He froze. The warmth was distinctly noticeable. The storage room was the final point. Sarah moved the old cabinet aside. It slid easily on wheels, and showed the power supply behind it. The cable went under the baseboard, toward the living room, bypassing the main wiring channel. "This powers devices that aren't in your official system. Otherwise, the cable would go to the common panel." Nathan squatted, followed the cable's path with his eyes. He was silent for a long time. Sarah stood nearby, not daring to break the silence. Finally, he stood up, exhaled heavily, and looked her straight in the eye. "How much do you want for your silence?" Sarah flinched. "What?" "Don't play dumb. How much? 10,000? 20? Name your price and get lost." The words hit like a slap. Sarah stepped back, clenching her fists. "That's not why I told you." Her voice trembled with hurt. "I thought you should know. You have an important meeting today. You said so yourself. If someone's watching you, there could be danger. I just wanted to warn you." "Oh yeah?" Nathan smirked, but without mirth. "And you think I'll believe that some homeless girl suddenly cares about my safety? Just like that, out of the goodness of her heart?" "Not out of goodness." Sarah straightened, looking him in the eye. "Out of gratitude. Your wife gave me shelter when I was freezing, gave me a chance to earn money. That's more than anyone's done for me in the last year. I'm not asking for money. I just said what I noticed. Do with it what you want." She turned and headed for the exit. Nathan caught up with her at the stairs, grabbed her shoulder. "Wait." Sarah stopped but didn't turn around. "I'm sorry." He spoke more quietly, and for the first time notes of sincerity appeared in his voice. I don't know who to trust. But if you're right, if someone really is watching, This changes everything. He ran his hand through his hair, ruffling it. Sarah turned around. She saw not an arrogant millionaire, but a tired, tense person who suddenly realized the scale of the problem. How many cameras did you count? 5, but I didn't check the whole house. There could be more. Can you check, right now? Sarah nodded. Nathan called Linda, briefly explained the situation. She went pale, pressed her palm to her lips. My God, Nathan. Who could have done this? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. The next 2 hours, Sarah methodically went through the house. She checked every corner, every device, every incomprehensible module. Nathan followed, recording everything she said on his phone. Linda sat in the living room with Danny, pale and silent. The boy was drawing something in an album, not understanding what was happening but sensing the tension in the air. Helen Porter looked in from the kitchen with an anxious expression, but didn't ask questions. Sarah started on the first floor. She moved slowly, carefully examining each room. She stood on chairs to check upper corners, looked behind cabinets, moved pictures, felt ventilation grills. Nathan silently watched, occasionally shining his phone's flashlight where she pointed. His face grew darker with each find. In the entryway, Sarah stopped at the alarm panel. Above it, at a height of about 8 feet, was mounted a white sensor, supposedly a standard door-opening sensor. But the placement was strange. Get me a chair, she asked. Nathan brought a chair from the dining room. Sarah climbed on it, brought her face close to the sensor. She ran her finger over the housing, feeling for seams. Then she took out a small flashlight from her pocket, the same one she always carried in her backpack from her practice days. Look, she shone it from the side. See this gap? The housing is detachable. Real opening sensors have hermetic seams, no gaps. But here there's a gap. That means someone opened and closed it. Most likely, installed additional components. Nathan tensed. Are you sure? Almost. Plus, look at the installation angle. The opening sensor should be aimed at the door frame to catch the magnetic contact, but this one is looking toward the entrance, at people. She got down from the chair, and they went to the dining room. Here, Sarah immediately noticed the climate control unit built into the wall next to the dining table. She approached, examined it carefully. Another one, she said briefly. See the indicator? It's not blinking in rhythm like it should. Usually a climate sensor blinks once every 5 seconds, showing activity. This one blinks every 2 seconds. That's data transmission. Nathan leaned closer, watching the barely noticeable blinking of the tiny LED. Well, damn, he exhaled through his teeth. Going up to the second floor, Sarah checked the hallway. Here the camera turned out to be the most brazen, installed right above the door to the master bedroom, disguised as an ordinary smoke detector. Sarah took a chair from the adjacent room, climbed up, and immediately saw the discrepancy. A smoke detector should be in the center of the ceiling, she explained, pointing, according to fire safety rules, but this one is shifted to the edge to capture the bedroom door in frame. Plus, look, the housing is a different shade. Doesn't match the other detectors in the house. Someone brought their own. My God, Nathan muttered. They were watching our bedroom? Not the bedroom itself. Who enters and exits, when, and who you talk to in the hallway before bed. Sarah methodically went through the remaining rooms on the second floor, but found nothing more. They went back down. The garage remained the last point. Here Sarah lingered the longest. The garage was spacious, designed for 3 cars. Now there were 2, a black SUV and a silver sedan. The walls were tiled, the ceiling high with powerful lights. Sarah walked the perimeter, looking into corners. Then she stopped at the far wall where canisters of oil and tools stood on a shelf. This is strange, she said, pointing to a small black box on the top shelf. What is it? Nathan approached closer. Formally, an expansion unit for the lighting system. But look where it's positioned. If this really is a lighting unit, why does it need a view of the parking spots? It would be more logical to install it at the entrance or on the ceiling. She took the box in her hands, turned it. On the back panel, she found a power connector and another one, for data transmission. A camera, Sarah said confidently. They wanted to know when you leave and when you return, maybe even read the license plates of guests' cars. Nathan was silent. His face was white, lips pressed together. In total, Sarah found 7 cameras. 3 in the living room and office she'd already shown. Another one turned out to be in the entryway, disguised as a door-opening sensor. The 5th, in the dining room, aimed at the dining table. The 6th, in the second-floor hallway, with a view of the bedroom. The 7th, the most unexpected, in the garage, aimed at the parking spots. When the inspection was finished, they returned to the living room. Sarah took out a notepad that Linda had given her and quickly sketched a floor plan with marks of all the cameras found. Nathan looked over her shoulder, and she could see the muscles in his jaw tighten. "This is professional work," Sarah said when she finished drawing. "Whoever installed it knew what they were doing. Cameras in key points, where you work, where you eat, where you talk, where you park your cars, means they're interested in your movements. They wanted a complete picture of your life." She circled the living room and office in red on the diagram. "Here is the highest concentration. That means the main target is your business conversations, documents you read, people you meet at home." Then she circled the dining room and hallway. "And this is additional control. The dining room, to hear informal conversations over meals. People often relax at the table, say things they wouldn't say in the office. The hallway by the bedroom, to know your schedule, when you go to bed, when you get up, who visits you late at night." Nathan listened silently, and Sarah could see his face harden with each word. "And the garage," she continued. "This is really professional. Tracking movements. If you suddenly left in the middle of the night, something urgent. If a guest arrived in an expensive car, an important meeting." She set down the notepad and looked at Nathan. "Whoever organized this wanted to know absolutely everything about you. This isn't just curiosity. This is preparation." "For what?" Nathan asked hoarsely. "To anticipate your actions, to know your plans before you voice them to partners, to see weak points in negotiations, possibly, to use information against you." Nathan slowly sank onto the couch, holding his head in his hands. He sat like that for a minute, maybe longer. The room was absolutely silent. Linda froze by the window, afraid to disturb his thoughts. Sarah stood aside, not knowing what else to say. Then Nathan abruptly stood up, as if having made some important decision. He took out his phone and dialed a number. He spoke briefly, harshly. "Cameron? Come urgently. Yes, right now. No, I won't say on the phone. 10 minutes. He threw the phone on the table and looked at Sarah. "You're staying here. I need you to explain everything to my financial director. He oversaw the system installation. He needs to know what happened." Sarah nodded. Everything inside tensed with excitement, but she tried to stay calm. 20 minutes later, Russell Cameron arrived, Nathan's company's financial director, a tall, fit man about 39, in an impeccable suit and with an impenetrable expression. He greeted Linda, nodded to Sarah, not hiding his surprise at her presence. "What happened?" Nathan briefly outlined the situation. Cameron listened silently, his face unchanged. "Are you sure these are cameras?" "The girl knows her stuff. She showed me specifically." "I checked myself." "And who, in your opinion, could have installed them?" "That's what I want to find out. You oversaw the installation. Who did we hire?" Cameron thought. "The contractor was recommended by security, a firm called Smart Home Solutions. They did everything turnkey: sensors, climate, lighting, alarm." "Were cameras in the project?" "No, only external ones, around the property perimeter. You forbade internal ones, remember? You said you didn't want to live under surveillance." Nathan nodded, remembering. So someone installed them without my knowledge. The question is, who gave the order and where is the signal going? Sarah, standing aside, coughed quietly. I can suggest. Both men turned. In the storage room there's an additional Wi-Fi repeater. Small, hidden behind boxes. I noticed it by chance. It's not part of your home network. Different manufacturer. Most likely the cameras transmit signal through it. And then, anywhere. Even to a server abroad. Cameron frowned. Seriously? Check for yourself. Nathan and Cameron went down to the storage room. Sarah showed the repeater, a miniature device hidden behind a box of tools. Cameron took it out, turned it in his hands. Chinese model, cheap, but it'll work for video transmission. Disconnect it, Nathan ordered. Wait, Cameron raised his hand. If we disconnect it, whoever's watching will understand we've discovered the system. Better to leave it but trace where the traffic goes. I know someone who can do that. Nathan hesitated, then nodded. Do it. But quickly. The deal is tomorrow at 11. I need to know who I'm dealing with. Cameron left, promising to return by evening with results. Nathan saw him to the door, returned to the living room. Sarah was getting ready to leave, but he stopped her with a gesture. Stay. Why? Because you're the only one who noticed what I missed. And because... He hesitated. Because I was wrong. About you. Sarah was silent. Nathan approached closer, looked straight into her eyes. I'm sorry for what I said yesterday, and for what I thought today. You helped me when you could have just left and forgotten. Stay. Please. Linda, standing by the window, quietly added, We'd be glad to have you. Sarah slowly nodded. The backpack remained standing by the door. In the evening, Cameron returned with a laptop and a grim face. With him was the same thin man in glasses, Owen, a cybersecurity specialist. The traffic goes to a server registered in the Netherlands, but the real owner is a shell company. The trail leads to a firm connected to Marcus Thornhill. Nathan went pale. Thornhill? Your main competitor for tomorrow's deal. Heavy, ringing silence hung in the air. Sarah could see Nathan's face turn to stone. So he knows everything. My every move, every conversation, every strategy. Looks like it. Nathan clenched his fists, then exhaled sharply. We're shutting everything down. Right now. Every camera, every wire. I want nothing left of this system. Owen nodded, opened his laptop. First, I'll cut power to the repeater. That'll stop signal transmission. They went down to the storage room. Owen took out the miniature repeater from behind the boxes, disconnected the power supply. The red indicator went out. Done. Transmission interrupted. Now the cameras. Nathan took a screwdriver and pliers from a drawer. All of them. Every last one. They started with the living room. Nathan set up a stepladder, climbed up, unscrewed the motion sensor hiding the camera. Sarah shone the flashlight. Inside the housing was indeed a miniature camera with a lens attached to the sensor board. There you are, damn it, Nathan muttered, ripping the device from its socket. The wires stretched. He pulled harder. There was a crack. Plastic mounts broke. The camera remained in his hands, dangling on wires. He came down, took the pliers, and methodically cut each wire coming from the camera. Then he threw the device on the floor. Next one. In the office, the same procedure. Nathan removed the lighting module, pried open the housing with the screwdriver. Inside, another camera, slightly larger than the previous one, with a wide-angle lens. They were watching how I work with documents, he spoke through his teeth, breaking the camera out of the housing. Reading everything I write. The wires crunched under the pliers. The camera flew to join the others. In the hallway, the temperature sensor turned out to be the most cunningly made. Nathan struggled with the latches for a long time until he tore them off with the screwdriver. The camera inside was built in so tightly he had to rip it out along with part of the circuit board. He cut the wires with fury now, throwing the debris in a corner. In the dining room, the entryway, on the second floor, everywhere the same. Cameron helped, removing devices from hard-to-reach places. Owen collected the debris in a bag. Sarah stood nearby, silently watching this methodical destruction of the surveillance system. The last was the camera in the garage. Nathan tore it off the wall without even bothering with mounts, just ripped, tearing off part of the lining with it. Wires stuck out from the wall. He cut them at the very base, then threw the camera on the concrete floor and stepped on it hard. The plastic crunched, the lens flew aside. "That's it," he straightened, breathing heavily. "They won't see anything more." Owen collected all the debris in a large plastic bag. "What should we do with them?" "Destroy them," Nathan said curtly. "Tomorrow you'll take them to disposal, so there's not even a trace left." They returned to the living room. Nathan washed his hands, poured himself whiskey, drank it in one gulp. "Now my house is mine again," he said quietly, looking out the window. "And no one will spy on my family anymore." Nathan abruptly turned and went out to the terrace. Sarah heard him talking on the phone, his voice low, tense. When he returned, his face was hard but calm. "I hired a private detective, David Archer, best in the city. He'll figure out who and how installed the cameras, and I'm moving the deal to a different location. Thornhill will be left empty-handed." Linda hugged his shoulders. Sarah stood aside, feeling out of place, but Nathan turned to her. "Thank you," he said simply. "You saved my company, maybe even more." Sarah smiled uncertainly. "I just noticed." "You didn't just notice. You didn't stay silent. That's more important." That night, Sarah lay in her room staring at the ceiling. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. The house was warm. The people were grateful. And she was no longer trash from the street. Morning started early. Sarah woke to sounds from downstairs. Nathan was talking on the phone, his voice tense but collected. She got up, washed, dressed, and went down to the kitchen. Helen was already making breakfast, eggs sizzling on the stove, the smell of fresh coffee in the air. "Good morning?" Sarah stopped in the doorway. "Morning, dear." Helen turned, smiled tiredly. "Sit down, eat. Today's going to be a tough day." "How do you know?" "Nathan's been up since 5, calling, organizing something. That only happens before important business." Sarah sat at the table. Helen placed a plate with eggs, toast, a cup of tea in front of her. She ate silently, listening to voices from the office. She could make out fragments of phrases, but the meaning came together. Nathan was changing all his plans. Half an hour later he came out, in a strict dark suit, crisp white shirt, tie perfectly knotted, face serious, focused. "Sarah," he stopped at the table. "Thank you for everything. A lot will be decided today. If it all goes well, I won't forget what you did for me." "Good luck," she nodded. He took his briefcase, kissed Linda, left. Sarah heard the SUV's engine start outside the window, then the sound faded. Linda sank into the chair across from her. "He never gets this nervous," she said quietly, "even before major deals. But today I can see he's at his limit." "Is it because of the cameras?" "Because of everything. Because someone was watching us. Our family. Our home. It's scary. You understand? The feeling that you've been stripped naked and examined for a year and a half." Sarah was silent. She understood that feeling. She herself had once lost everything, was left alone, and the feeling of defenselessness had haunted her for months. "He'll manage," she said confidently. "Nathan is strong. I can see that." Linda smiled weakly. "Thank you." The day dragged on painfully slowly. Sarah helped Helen around the house, cleaned, mopped floors, but her thoughts constantly returned to Nathan, to the deal, to what was happening now at the office. Linda couldn't find peace. She'd turn on the TV, then turn it off, try to read, then set the book aside. At 11:30, Cameron called. Linda put it on speaker. "How's it going?" she asked, not hiding her worry. "Holding up so far." Cameron's voice sounded tense. Nathan moved the meeting to the partner's office. Thornhill was shocked. He was preparing for a completely different format, but insisted on participating, came with lawyers. And now? Negotiations are underway. Nathan's not letting him get a word in, leading firmly, confidently. I've never seen him like this. "Keep me posted," Linda asked. "Will do." The connection ended. Linda looked at Sarah. "I can't just sit and wait. It's unbearable." "I understand." They were drinking tea in the kitchen when at 1 o'clock the phone rang again. Linda grabbed it. "Cameron?" "No, it's me." Nathan's voice sounded tired but with notes of satisfaction. "Everything's fine. Thornhill tried to pressure, but I seized the initiative. The partners are on my side." "Thank God," Linda exhaled with relief. "But this isn't the end. Financial terms are being discussed now. Thornhill's trying to find loopholes. It'll get hot." "You'll manage." "I will. Love you. I'll call later." Sarah saw the tension lift from Linda. She smiled, for the first time all day genuinely. Around 3 in the afternoon, there was a ring at the door. Sarah opened it. On the threshold stood a man about 45, in a leather jacket, with a short haircut and an attentive gaze. A hard face, inspiring trust and wariness simultaneously. "David Archer," he introduced himself. "Private detective. Nathan Mitchell hired me. May I come in?" Linda came out to the entryway. "Come in. Nathan warned us." Archer entered the living room, looked around with a professional eye. "So you're the girl who discovered the surveillance?" He turned to Sarah. "Yes." "Good work. Professional." "Thank you." Archer took out a tablet, opened a file with photographs. "I checked the contractor, Smart Home Solutions. The firm's existed for 3 years, registration is clean, but the owner is a certain Ethan Sullivan, a corporate lawyer. He used to work for Thornhill." "So the connection is direct?" Linda nodded. "Exactly. Sullivan created the firm with front men, but the real financing came from Build Tech Services, which is connected to Thornhill. Classic scheme, several layers to hide the trail." He scrolled further, showed documents. "Sullivan personally oversaw the system installation in your house, came 3 times, checked the crew's work, formally, as the client's representative. Actually, controlled camera installation." "Can it be proven?" Sarah asked. "Yes. I have photographs, conversation recordings, financial documents. This is enough to open a criminal case for illegal information gathering, plus a lawsuit for invasion of privacy." Linda ran her hand over her face. "My God, how did they dare?" "They dared and lost." Archer put away the tablet. "Now the main thing is not to let Thornhill use the remaining information. He surely recorded everything the cameras saw. He has an archive of conversations, documents, deal details. What should we do?" "Nathan's already acting. He changed the strategy, presented information so Thornhill couldn't use his trump cards. But one more thing is needed. Publicly expose him." "How?" "Submit materials to law enforcement and partners. Show that Thornhill used illegal methods. This will kill his reputation. Investors won't work with someone who engages in corporate espionage." At 4:30, Cameron called again. "Linda, tell the detective. Nathan's ready to act. Let him submit the materials." Archer nodded, took the phone, and went outside. Sarah heard him talking with someone, quickly, clearly, professionally. In the evening, around 7, Nathan returned. He entered tired, loosening his tie, but with the face of a winner. Linda rushed to him, hugged him. He pressed her to himself, closed his eyes. "Everything's fine," he said quietly. "The deal is mine. Partners signed the contract, 30 million in investments. Thornhill was left with nothing." "How did you do it?" "Changed everything. Meeting place, negotiation format, financial terms. He prepared for one thing, got another. He tried to pressure, talked about risks, a pause, demanded postponing the signing, but I presented evidence of information leakage, showed that someone was trying to disrupt the deal by illegal methods. And the partners believed you? More than that, they called their security service. They checked the detective's information and confirmed Thornhill used corporate espionage. He was removed from participation in the competition. His reputation is destroyed. He sat on the couch, relaxing for the first time all day. Sarah stood by the door, not daring to enter. Nathan saw her, waved his hand. Come here. You're part of this victory. She approached hesitantly. Nathan extended his hand, shook her palm. Thank you. Without you, I would have lost. You saved not only the deal, you saved my company. I just noticed, Sarah answered quietly. No. You didn't stay silent. That's more important. Cameron entered, followed by Archer. The detective looked satisfied. Materials submitted to police. Criminal case opened against Sullivan and Smart Home Solutions. Thornhill isn't being touched directly yet. There's a connection, but legally he's covered. But the reputational blow has been dealt. Partners are already refusing to work with him. Enough, Nathan nodded. I don't want revenge. I just want him to disappear from my life. He'll disappear, Archer said confidently. Without a reputation in your field, he's nobody. Cameron opened a bottle of whiskey, poured into glasses, handed one to Nathan, the second to Archer, kept the third for himself. To victory. To justice, Archer added. They drank. Sarah stood aside, watching them. She felt part of something big, important, though just a few days ago she'd been nobody. Nathan set down his glass, looked at Cameron. Russell, thanks for the work. Cameron nodded, finished his whiskey. I have to go. Tomorrow I need to close the deal documents. He left. Archer stayed another half hour, discussing case details, then left too. Nathan remained with Linda and Sarah in the living room. I'm tired, he admitted, but it's a good tiredness, the tiredness after victory. Linda sat next to him, took his hand. I'm proud of you. He smiled, hugging her, then looked at Sarah. I need to talk to you. Seriously. Sarah tensed. I'm listening. You saved my company, my family, my home. I can't just say thank you and forget. I want to help you for real. You've already helped. Gave me a roof over my head, food, work. Those are trifles. I want more. You'll restore your documents, return to community college, finish your education. I'll pay for everything. Plus, I have an idea about work. What kind? David Archer is looking for a junior specialist for his security service. You know technology, you're attentive to details, you can think logically. He's ready to take you on a trial period. If you show results, you'll stay permanently. Decent salary, plus training at the company's expense. Sarah was silent, not believing what she heard. Nathan continued. I'll arrange temporary housing too. An apartment downtown. Small, but your own. You'll rent it until you get on your feet. I'll cover the rent. This isn't charity, it's an investment, in a person who proved her reliability. The words stuck in her throat. Sarah felt her eyes fill with tears and couldn't hold them back. I don't know what to say. Say yes. That's all I need. She nodded, unable to speak. Nathan stood, placed his hand on her shoulder. Welcome to the team, Sarah. You've earned it. The next day, Nathan took Sarah to show her the new apartment he was paying for. They drove for about 20 minutes before stopping at a modern residential complex in a quiet neighborhood near a park. The building was new, 7 stories, with a clean entrance and security at the entrance. 5th floor, Nathan said, going up in the elevator. South-facing windows, bright all day. He opened the door with keys and stepped aside, letting Sarah go first. She crossed the threshold and froze. The apartment turned out to be bigger than she expected. Not a tiny room, but a full 1-bedroom with a spacious kitchen and separate bedroom. The floor was covered with light laminate, walls painted in soft beige tones, large windows with white frames, bright daylight streaming through them. In the living room stood a small gray sofa, a coffee table of light wood, a bookshelf by the wall. In the kitchen, white cabinets with glossy facades, built-in appliances, stove, oven, refrigerator, even a microwave. On the countertop, dishes were neatly arranged, plates, cups, glasses, pots, pans, everything new, everything chosen with taste. Sarah went into the bedroom, opening the door. Here stood a bed with a soft headboard, made with fresh linens, snow white, clearly expensive, pleasant to the touch. A wardrobe took up the entire wall, mirrored doors reflecting the room. On the nightstand, a table lamp with a warm shade. On the floor, a soft carpet. She returned to the kitchen, opened the cupboards. There were not only plates but also utensils, cutting boards, knives, kitchen towels. In another cupboard, supplies of cereal, pasta, tea, coffee, sugar, even cleaning supplies under the sink. Linda chose everything, Nathan explained, standing at the entrance. She said you should have everything you need from day one, so you wouldn't have to run to stores when you're just moving in. Sarah opened the refrigerator. Inside were milk, butter, eggs, vegetables, fruits, everything fresh, clearly bought this morning. I don't know what to say. Her voice trembled. She went into the bathroom. Snow-white tile, new fixtures, a large mirror above the sink. On shelves, shampoo, shower gel, soap, toothpaste, towels, soft, fluffy, beautiful blue color. Even a bathrobe hung on a hook behind the door. Sarah returned to the living room. Nathan stood by the window looking at the street, giving her time to look around. She approached, stopped next to him, and suddenly everything she'd been holding inside the last few days burst out. Tears flowed on their own. She couldn't hold them back. "Thank you," she whispered through tears. "Thank you. I didn't even dream of this." Nathan turned, saw her tear-stained face, and gently placed his hand on her shoulder. "You earned this, Sarah. You saved my family, my company, my life. This is the least I can do." "But it's too much." She wiped her tears, but they kept flowing. "An apartment, furniture, food, all this. I can never repay you." "I don't need you to repay. Just live here, study, work, become the person you want to be. That will be the best thanks." Sarah nodded, unable to speak. She walked around the apartment again, touching the furniture, stroking the bedding, opening cupboards. Everything was real. Everything was hers. "A month ago I was sleeping on the street," she said quietly, returning to the living room. "Freezing, didn't know where to find food. I thought that's how I'd end, somewhere in an alley, in cold and loneliness. And now I have a home, a real home." "Now you have a future," Nathan corrected. "Home is just the beginning." She looked at him through tears and smiled, for the first time in a long while genuinely, from the heart. "I won't let you down, I promise. I'll work with all my strength, study, grow. I'll prove you weren't wrong to believe in me." "I already know that." He handed her the apartment keys. "Welcome home, Sarah." She took the keys, squeezed them in her palm so tightly as if afraid they'd disappear. Then she cried again, this time from happiness, from relief, from gratitude that overwhelmed her. Nathan gave her time to calm down, then said gently, "Rest today. Get settled. Tomorrow's a day off. You can arrange things as you like. And Monday, to work. Archer's already waiting for you." He left, leaving her alone. Sarah locked the door, went to the room, fell on the bed. She cried for a long time, from happiness, from shock, from the fact that life can change so quickly and so incredibly. Then she got up, washed her face with cold water, went out on the balcony. The city spread below, streets, houses, parked trees in the distance, her city, her life, her new beginning. 2 weeks passed. Sarah still couldn't believe this was really happening to her. She sat in a small office on the third floor of an office building, going through another security systems audit report. Outside the window, autumn rain drizzled, the city drowned in gray fog, but inside it was warm and bright. David Archer came into the office with a folder of documents. "How's progress?" "Finished checking 4 sites." Sarah showed the computer screen where several files with detailed reports were open. "Found minor vulnerabilities everywhere. Outdated passwords, unprotected access points, sensors without encryption. Compiled a list of recommendations for each site separately." She scrolled through the first document, showing details. This office center, their smart home system was installed 3 years ago, but the passwords remained factory defaults. I checked through the open interface. The administrator didn't even change the standard settings. Any person with minimal knowledge could have gained access to climate control, lighting, and even security camera recordings. Archer frowned, leaning closer to the screen. "Serious hole." Sarah switched to the second file. The second site, a private house on the outskirts. Different problem there. Motion and temperature sensors transmit data without encryption. I intercepted several packets with a regular analyzer. Everything's readable in plain text. Owner's present schedule, times when they leave and return, even room temperatures. This information can easily be used to plan a theft. She showed the logs of intercepted data, lines with timestamps, sensor readings, activity markers. I recommended the owner update sensor firmware to a version with encryption support. It's not complicated, takes a couple hours of a technician's work. The third site caused her special concern. And here, a small business center, I found something really strange. They have security cameras connected to a cloud service, but checking revealed the cloud service belongs to an unknown company registered abroad. No information about where recordings are stored, who has access to them, how long they're kept. Formally, this could be confidential information leakage. Did you warn the owner? Yes. Recommended changing cloud storage provider to a verified one, preferably with servers in the country and transparent security policy. Plus, set up local backup of recordings so they don't depend only on the cloud. Archer nodded approvingly. Right. And the fourth? Sarah opened the last file. Fourth site, a young couple's apartment. The problem there is device integration. They have a bunch of gadgets from different manufacturers, smart bulbs from one company, thermostat from another, locks from a third, speaker from a fourth, all managed through different apps, each with its own passwords, security settings. I checked. Half the devices use weak encryption algorithms. Some transmit data in plain text altogether. Plus, they're connected to one network without segmentation. If you hack one device, you get access to all the rest. What did you advise? Set up a unified control center, segment the network, separate for smart devices, separate for personal gadgets like phones and computers, and update firmware on all devices to latest versions. Plus, install a network firewall with basic traffic filtering. Sarah closed the files and looked at Archer. General conclusion: most people install systems, but don't think about security at all. Use factory passwords, don't update firmware, don't segment networks. This opens huge opportunities for hacking, surveillance, data theft. Archer took the printout, carefully scanned each point with his eyes, lingering on key moments. Good work, he repeated, setting aside the papers. Detailed, specific, no fluff. Exactly what's needed. You didn't just find problems, you gave practical solutions that owners can implement. That's a sign of professionalism. He thought for a moment, then added, keep up the good work. Next week you'll have 3 more sites. One of them is a large office with 100 employees. That'll be more complex, but I'm confident you'll handle it. He left, and Sarah allowed herself to smile. 2 weeks ago, she didn't know where she'd sleep tomorrow. Today she had a job, salary, prospects. Documents for the correspondence program were restored. She'd be accepted in a month when the new semester started. The apartment was small, 1 bedroom, but her own. Clean, with furniture, windows overlooking the park. In the evening, Sarah went to the Mitchells. They'd invited her to dinner, already the third time in these 2 weeks. Linda met her at the door, hugged her. "How's work?" "Excellent. Archer's pleased, says I'm learning quickly." "Of course he's pleased. You saved all our lives." Sarah laughed. "Don't exaggerate." They went into the dining room. Nathan was already sitting at the table, Danny next to him building something from a construction set. The boy saw Sarah and shouted joyfully, "Sarah's here! Look, I built a robot!" "I see, what a beauty." She sat down next to him, examining the construction. Danny enthusiastically explained how everything worked. Nathan smiled, watching them. Dinner passed in a warm, almost family atmosphere. They talked about work, plans, news. Nathan said the deal had finally closed, money came into the account, the company was reaching a new level. "Thornhill disappeared from view," he added. "I heard he's trying to restore his reputation, but so far unsuccessfully. Nobody wants to work with someone who engages in espionage." "And Sullivan?" Sarah asked. "Under investigation. Cameron says the case is ironclad. He's facing prison time for illegal information gathering and invasion of privacy." Smart Home Solutions closed, employees scattered. "Justice prevailed," Linda said quietly. "Yes," Nathan agreed. "And that's thanks to Sarah." Sarah shook her head. "Thanks to you. You believed me when you could have just thrown me out. We believed you because you were right. And because you weren't afraid to tell the truth, even when it was risky." After dinner, Linda called Sarah to the kitchen, poured tea. "Listen, I have a request," she began cautiously. "What?" "Danny's very attached to you. Asks every day when you'll come. Maybe you could visit more often. Not as a worker, but as part of the family." Sarah froze with the cup in her hands. "Part of the family?" "You saved us. You became an important person to us, and I'd like you to feel at home here. Not as a guest, but as one of us." These words warmed her inside more than any tea. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. "Thank you. I'll come." They returned to the living room. Nathan sat with Danny on the couch, reading him a book. The boy yawned, nodding off. Linda took her son, carried him to put to bed. Nathan poured himself whiskey, sat in the armchair. "You know, Sarah, I've rethought a lot these 2 weeks." "What exactly?" "Before I thought the main thing in life was money, success, power. Built a company, earned millions, expanded influence, thought that was happiness. And then it turned out someone was watching me, invading my home, threatening my family. And all my money didn't protect me. A girl I almost threw out on the street protected me." He took a sip, looked out the window. "That taught me a lot. That what matters isn't how much money you have, but who's beside you, who you can trust, who will tell the truth even if it's unpleasant." Sarah listened silently. Nathan continued. "You could have stayed silent, left and forgotten, but you spoke up, and that saved me. Thank you, seriously." "I just couldn't stay silent," Sarah answered quietly. "You didn't owe anyone anything. You acted according to your conscience. That's worth a lot." He set down his glass, stood. "Go, rest. Tomorrow's a work day." Sarah said goodbye and left. Outside it was cool, but she walked to the subway, enjoying the evening air. Life had changed so abruptly that sometimes it seemed like a dream. But no, this was reality. Real, tangible, warm. Another week later, a letter came from the community college. Restoration approved, classes would begin on the 1st of next month. Sarah read the letter and couldn't hold back tears of joy. She was a student again, could study again, develop, build a future. At work, Archer assigned her the first independent project, checking the security system in a small office building. Sarah handled it in 3 days, found several serious vulnerabilities, wrote a detailed report with recommendations. Archer praised her, said she exceeded expectations. If it continues like this, in 6 months, I'll move you to a permanent position with a raise, he promised. Sarah worked with doubled effort. Each project was an opportunity for her to prove she was worthy of trust, that she wouldn't let them down. At the end of the month, Nathan invited her to the company office. Sarah arrived, went up to the 10th floor where the executive's office was located. The secretary showed her inside. Nathan sat at a massive desk, documents before him. "Sit down," he pointed to a chair. "I want to discuss something important." Sarah sat, tensing. "I'm listening." "Cameron's leaving. Decided to open his own business, consulting. I'm letting him go in peace. He's a good specialist. But I need a new financial director. I'm already looking at candidates, but I want to strengthen security service. So what happened never happens again. Makes sense. I want to expand the department, hire 2 more specialists. You'll be one of them if you agree." "Of course I agree." "Good. Salary will increase, plus training at company expense. If you show results, in a year, you can head the technical audit direction." Sarah couldn't believe her ears. 3 weeks ago, she was homeless. Today, she was being offered a career. "Thank you," she exhaled. "I'll try not to let you down." "I know you won't. Otherwise, I wouldn't offer." They shook hands. Sarah left the office with a light heart and clear head. The future no longer frightened her. It opened before her, full of possibilities. In the evening, she returned to her apartment, closed the door, and leaned back against it. Silence, warmth, peace. Her room, her space, her life. Sarah went to the window, looked at the city. Lights in windows, cars on roads, people hurrying about their business. Somewhere among them was Nathan, returning home to his family. Linda was putting Danny to bed. Somewhere Archer was working on another case. They'd all become part of her life, part of her new home. She was no longer trash from the street. She was no longer that freezing girl who sat by the fence, not knowing where she'd spend the night. She was a person with a name, with work, with a future, with a roof over her head that wouldn't be taken away tomorrow, with people who believed in her, with the opportunity to study, grow, become better. And she was no longer afraid of that future. For the first time in a long while, she could look ahead without fear, without anxiety, without the feeling that the ground would disappear from under her feet at any moment. Sarah went to the table, sat down, opened her laptop, her own, bought with her first salary. She looked at the screen where project files glowed, reports, plans for the future. All this was real. All this belonged to her. Life had taught her one simple but important rule. Sometimes it's enough to simply not stay silent when you see injustice. Not to turn away, not to pretend it doesn't concern you. To tell the truth, even if it's scary, even if you don't know how it will turn out. Even if they might not listen, throw you out, call you a liar. To extend a helping hand to those who need it, even if you're barely holding on yourself. Because it's in those moments, when you make the right choice despite fear, that the world notices you. And then the world responds in kind. Not immediately, perhaps, but it responds. Good returns to those who do it, even when it seems no one sees. Sarah closed the laptop and lay on the bed, soft, warm, her own. She closed her eyes and smiled. Tomorrow was a new day, new tasks, new opportunities, and she was ready to meet them fully prepared.